was a volcano erupting at the time in Hawaii somewhere, and we worked out how we could put a wire from the top of this volcano down and across the lava, and they were going to surf the lava.
You are the Top Gear safety guy.
Did 16 years supporting the show. We did over 180 episodes. The last couple of years with the safety of Top Gear, we were still providing fire and ambulance support, and then that was it. I only found out the show was over through seeing it online. Top Gear was over, we didn't hear anything again.
The guy that's gonna surf the lava, how the hell does he price that?
Every time they do the stunt, they get paid again to do it, because it's like they're putting themselves at risk.
So the man that surfs the lava would be getting paid a lot of money.
It could be 50 grand, it could be 100 grand.
What was a time that you was on site where something really bad has happened?
There was my time in the fire brigade when there was tough days, really tough.
Almost tougher than what you do now?
Oh, tough, emotionally tough as regards people dying. There was a crash on the track, a motorbike crash, and there's a bit in the original Top Gun where he says, too close to missile, switching to guns, okay? Maverick says that. In the second one, they do a similar line, but they didn't have the footage of his thumb go into the switch to switch to it. So they had to make a fake plane setup to film that shot again, but they did it inside the Top Gear studio. So a tiny bit of Top Gun 2 was filmed in the Top Gear studio.
But you have filmed a lot of other stuff in the Top Gear studio because you are the Top Gear safety guy, Andy Harris, despite the fact that you've worked on so much stuff. And really, you had pretty much the most important job on site because your job was to keep those 3 lunatics safe. Was that the hardest job you've ever had?
Keeping people safe is easy for me. The politics behind keeping people safe is what's difficult. That's what's difficult. Who to speak to, when to speak to, especially in the film industry, picking up when there's going to be a massive blowout from some producer and famous movie stars, and it's like, okay, I'm going to pretend I've got a phone call now and leave set.
Because when we think safety, and we've got one of your ambulances behind next to your Speciale, which doesn't reek of safety, we think of the guys in green suits at the track that are usually just sat watching everything occur until the moment that they're needed, which is when their value kind of shows.
Yeah.
Those guys in green suits at the track, how much were they needed over the course of, say, everything that you did at Top Gear? You said it was 2 times?
Yeah. I mean, if they're covering like a racetrack, say they're at Clarkson, for example, they're probably not going to be doing a lot because like the average motor racing event, you know, there isn't ambulances moving out. But Top Gear, they would be there. But their role at Top Gear, the team were doing like refueling cars, washing cars, making cups of tea, kind of doing everything. So they booked them as ambulance crew or fire crew, but they'd actually be doing everything just to help the show work.
Is that for the mental side of them as well? Because I can imagine, it's not putting down that role at all in any way, but I can imagine that if there isn't anything going on, it can be a pretty boring place to stand occasionally. So like, do people naturally that are doing that role kind of try and get involved in other things and they get to know the people?
The people which my team employ will always want proactive people that are actually going to be able to do stuff, not do too much, not get too involved. We have a phrase in the business, visibly invisible. And that's what all of my team are told to be. They're told to be visibly invisible. People know you're there. They can see you. You're visible, but you're invisible. You're discreet. You're subtle. You're in the background. You're under the radar. When something's doing, then you're visible. So it's this little phrase that we have.
Now, the things that you've been able to purchase through your career in safety are very visible. Speciale, Defender Doctor, and we're going to go into everything else as well. Your other cars, 720S, all sorts of things. They're not the kind of stereotypical car I would imagine a health and safety guy that's part of the Top Gear team being able to own, buy and drive.
Yeah.
When you were working on Top Gear, were you there like, how did that work? Where was your business at that point?
So originally back then, I was still in the fire brigade then. I do the business side of stuff to generate revenue to buy cars. That's kind of, I think I've just understood that right now, actually. It's kind of like, that is the reason why I work the way I work, is because I can buy the things that I want. When I was a firefighter, I had a TVR Cerberus when I was in the fire brigade, which was, you know, being able to afford this, be able to even afford getting through an MOT every year, because it was a TVR, was quite a struggle. But I realised there's only so much I can make as a firefighter. So hence why I then moved across into safety, because I realised I can make more money, I can build a business, I can get the things I want. And ironically, I found something pop up on Facebook that said some flashbacks like 10 years ago. And it was me putting up a picture of a Speciale saying, look at this, you can spec a Speciale on the Ferrari website. fucking almost exactly the same spec as that. I didn't even know I'd be able to get one day. So
that is insane. But the thing that I want to get into, because it is insane, is like the how, because there's so many things that I know about you that I think even entrepreneurs wouldn't do the same way as you. There's a really valuable piece of information in this podcast that we're going to talk about today, because I've had always admired how you have separated running a business from Andy Harris, the person, and you've basically generated two different income streams from doing that. But it's not been without challenge, not been without managing stuff. So I want to take it back to where we kind of finished on our last podcast for a minute, which was we went past the Clarkson, May and Hammond years of trying to keep those boys safe when they were doing crazy stuff. But we never kind of got into the end of Top Gear, because even though we'll talk about all the films that you've done, etc. today, Top Gear is obviously a massive part of your story. How did that come to an end for you? It was very abruptly, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had some of our team on the day that Freddie had his accident. That happened, and then never heard again. Did 16 years supporting the show. We did over 180 episodes. That happened, and then that was it. Never heard. I only found out the show was over through seeing it online. There was it, and myself and a lot of the other crew as well. That was it. We never heard anything.
Were you there that day?
No, I was in Abu Dhabi, ironically, on Gran Turismo. But some of my team were at Pinewood, but they actually had people on there on the day, the crew that they booked for the day. And that's then obviously I got the phone call saying obviously what had happened. But since then, that was it. Top Gear was over. We didn't hear anything again.
I know Freddie's done his documentary since we last spoke, and there's been a lot more information coming out about it. But like, from your perspective, what were like critical failings that day? Do you think if you were there, that wouldn't have happened? Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't massively involved towards the last couple of years with the safety of Top Gear. We were still providing fire and ambulance support. The BBC were doing the health and safety. I'd kind of moved away from that, and I'd moved a bit more into movies and stuff. And I'd still drop in every now and again and do a day on Top Gear, but not so much in a safety role, more as like just me and a paramedic overseas doing something with the show, just being there and supporting them. So
your business, MSS Safety, supplies ambulances, fire crew, etc. to racetracks, movie sets, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And because of your passion for cars, it's kind of linked into that. But Andy Harris, you, as like a entity, you use your knowledge and skill base and you sell that at a quite high day rate to those companies as a separate thing, right?
Yeah. So when Top Gear ended, I thought, okay, I need to kind of really push into other stuff. And I realized that the business side of stuff, being a businessman running a company, does not excite me. I've never written a business plan. The business runs, it turns over, over $1 million every year. I've got an amazing team that run the business, but that doesn't excite me. Whereas what does excite me is being out and doing cool stuff. So even recently, Red Bull F1 team came to me, said we want to unveil our new livery for 2026. How can we do it? So we came up with the idea about the plane swooping down, ripping the cover off the car. So that whole project was passed to me by Red Bull, which is like bonkers.
How has that happened? Why are Red Bull getting in touch with you when you were just part of the fire service like a decade ago?
Yeah. I think it's because through Top Gear and then working with other people, I just met lots of people, and my confidence in what I understand and what I know about has come through. And the creativity side of stuff as well, being neurodivergent, it enables me to see things differently. So when people want to do a project, I'm like, you can do it this way. And if you put a camera here, we can do that, but you won't be able to see this. So we'll hide that. So I can just devise ideas. And that's kind of where I am now, where I'm sort of like producing and coordinating and choreographing action things for, online content, for product launches, for, massive global brands, but it's all car related, which is what I understand, because I understand race. I race myself. I understand how cars move fast and what they can do.
And talking about money, linked into that, because I honestly think this is one of the most valuable pieces of information for any business owner or entrepreneur listening here, because people just don't execute how you've consistently lived your life with your business, because it's almost like a train track, and you've got one of the tracks on this side and one of the tracks on this side, and it's like MSS Andy Harris. And I think you've made significantly more money doing it that way, because essentially your Avatrack and most business owners that own the business that supplies the ambulance and the fire crew would just do that and be caught up in the weeds, basically doing that part of it. But then you're there basically charging thousands of pounds a day for your services alongside. Like, was there anybody that told you to do that? I know it's a stupid thing to do, but because I think most people just get sucked in, is probably the phrase, to the day-to-day carnage running their business. And then you're just like, no, the business is the business. And like, if you want me, it's me. And would you say it's that single decision alone that's allowed you to purchase a lot of the crazy cars and things that you've amassed?
I think over the years, the car purchase has been, if we go and do a massive movie project and want it for a year, that normally I have to sell a car at the start to be able to fund the company doing that for the year. So I put it into the business. At the end of the business, at the end of that year, I then bring it out and I'll invest in another vehicle or something. But yeah, running it as Andy Harris or at the Car Film and Safety Guys, I sell it as online, is a lot more profitable, a lot less problematic. The only person that can let it down is me. I try and do 1 day a week with the business here at the studios, but there's a team that run it who are very autonomous and very allowed to do things their way, which is why it enables MSS to run and generate revenue, and then me to do my separate thing on a very big day rate, because I know no one else can do it. No one else in the world does what I do, which sounds a bit arrogant, but there isn't anyone. It's an amazing honour.
And is that just because of all the experiences that came through this Top Gear moment, that came through this thing that brought so many people together? I've had so many of your friends on this podcast from the Top Gear days, from Jim to Ben Collins to so many. I was with a lot of the team that do the new digital one the other night, and I know they watch every single one of these. I can't believe how abruptly that came to an end. Like, does nothing surprise you in business anymore?
Nothing surprises me in business. The industries that I'm in, movies, television, content, events, it's such a creative, non-normal.
You found out you wouldn't be going back to the Top Gear track to provide services your business supplied through articles on social media, essentially, rather from the BBC themselves.
Yeah. I think a mate of mine sent me a text saying, have you seen this? And I think it was something saying that the show, and what they said, the show is going to be archived for the time being or something. And that was it. There is no more Top Gear. And that's kind of what I enjoyed doing. That's where now myself and a lot of the ex-Top Gear crew as well are now making our own productions ourselves. So we have brands like Bentley. Did you see the Travis Pastrana Bentley film with
Yeah.
So that is John, who's the Top Gear series director, myself, a load of the camera team. It's the same people that make Top Gear. So there's now this group of people that is the people that made Top Gear. Bentley can come to them and say, we want to do this, and we know each other. This is what we do, car stuff.
So for just like a bit of additional context for a new listener listening that's still a little bit like, this is all a little bit weedy, I can't quite figure it all out. We're sat in your unit, which is based in a studio currently. This is where you run your fire vehicles and your ambulances out, and you've got someone that runs this business day to day pretty much for you?
Yeah. There's like 5 people in the office next door that run the business. Yeah.
And then you're basically out just doing whatever you want, wherever you want. We mentioned Red Bull a minute ago. They're like, I went off to do this job from Red Bull. Yeah. But also said that, a decade ago, you were in the fire service, and it's just been because of the people that you've met that's made that possible. I hate the word networking because it feels so forced. And I think people that are not necessarily used to talking or a little bit worried about talking to people and kind of getting into how you communicate with business owners and kind of like-minded people, the word networking, I don't think it helps, because it's like it almost applies to a forced situation, like you're somewhere to do something. Would you say your best deals, the Red Bull moments, everything has come from pretty much either sitting at a bar or just bumping into someone at a car event because you bought a car, rather than kind of physically being in a place to hunt for something?
Yeah. If you look at these, I think they do these breakfast networking events for business.
Yeah.
Don't they? I've never done anything like that. This is just my friends. This is the people which I've met and done stuff with, and we just phone each other up and say, we've got this job coming on, do you want to do that? Or I'll say to them, do you want to do this? Or a lot of the stuff now with our clients, we will come up with the ideas and then we'll then go to them. But the people are, and I think maybe it's the industry, maybe it is the creative media industry that is this industry where it's not formal, it's not a business network, it is your friends, your contacts, your people that you work with. And then the money's just something which is done behind the scenes to pay for it all.
So you did the 2026 Red Bull F1 car reveal, right?
Yeah.
where the cover comes off from a helicopter.
Where it's a plane comes down at 180 knots.
Right, so talk us through that. So how did that whole situation come about from inception to how are you involved in that? Like, what is it all?
Okay, so the team at Red Bull, Toby, who I've known for many years, he's at Red Bull. He looks after all of the motorsport side of stuff for Red Bull, not just F1, but all of Red Bull stuff. And Toby's like, we've got this idea. We want to kind of reveal this car. And he then hands it to me to say, right, how can we make this happen safely, but also physically? So, for example, what we did was we got a real F1 car at the Red Bull factory. We started getting covers over it, and we started having like winches and pulley systems and a dynamometer to look at the newton meters of force. And we actually started rehearsing and testing, ripping covers off of cars, because we've then got to put that force, those amount of newton meters that are there. We know that the plane is going to be doing 180 knots coming down. And what was weird with that one was I was thinking, right, I've got calculations of this type, this cover at this speed, and this amount of force creates this amount of kilonewtons. Can it rip off the back of the aeroplane, for example? So I got my friend Peter on board, and he made this hook system which could catch and then release the hook. But what was quite cool with that was I'm thinking, I need to get like a scientific aerodynamic engineer or someone to help me understand and put all like computer CFD model it all. And I'm like, clients, Red Bull F1.
So Red Bull F1 have not figured this all out themselves?
No. So they pass it to me. But then what was so cool with that was I then get introduced to Red Bull Advanced Technologies. Their like head of aero is then calculating all the wind calculations with me and the forces of, you think that sheet over an F1 car is 6 meters by 4 meters. For a split second, when that plane is doing 180 knots, it is pulling a flat sheet that has a surface area of whatever 6 meters by 4 meters is as a sail. So for a split second, it's
going to slow the plane down.
It's going to rip the back of the plane off. So you've got to calculate what are the forces involved that don't rip a plane in half at 180 knots at 20 feet above the ground. So, you know, and the plane team, so we're rehearsing it on the ground with sort of like pulleys and winches and everything. Meanwhile, the plane team, over in the Czech Republic, they're actually rehearsing the speed and coming down and how do they do it? And then we just then bring it all together and work out how we do it on the day.
Let me tell you a story about my girlfriend, Speedy Edie, who phoned me multiple times yesterday complaining about a rattling noise and engine warning light on her Mercedes. To say she was panicking was an understatement. However, to my luck, it was the exact day that OBD11 launched Mercedes to their list of supported vehicles. Those supported models also include VAG Group cars, BMW, Toyota and Ford in the US. After plugging in the little pocket-sized OBD11 to the Mercedes OBD port, we let the device and the app do its thing by scanning the car and then clearing all of the fault codes, including that engine warning light from the dash. 24 hours later, the warning light remained gone, and we found out that startup rattle was just due to a loose screw. But OBD11 goes far beyond just clearing fault codes on your car. This little device has over 1,000 one-touch applications ready to activate, including Apple CarPlay.
Oh my god, now I have Apple CarPlay.
I think the car call inspector is a genius feature of OBD11, allowing you to check out any new or used car you're looking at purchasing to make sure it's clear of any unwanted issues. Making sure you have an OBD11 in your car is absolutely essential, whatever mileage you do. And we've made that a little bit easier for you to add that to your arsenal by OBD putting on a sale which runs to the end of the month, the 30th of April, and using my discount code RTS and the links in the description and the pinned comment of this video, whether you're listening on Spotify or YouTube or Apple or wherever, you will able to get that discount and go and grab yourself an OBD11. I promised when you're by the side of the road, absolutely worried stiff, why your engine warning lights come on and you're able to clear it because it was literally nothing, then you'll thank me. You can also thank me by subscribing down below, liking this video and saying thank you to OBD11 for sponsoring this video. Now, back to our conversation. Tell me, it sounds fun unless something went wrong.
Yeah.
So like, what's the moment where you have to make, do you ultimately have like a decision over that to say like, we're not doing this? And is that difficult with a client like Red Bull?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult with every client. The good thing is with people like Monster Energy, Red Bull, McLaren, all these companies that do automotive stuff, they understand risk anyway. So that's great. But when you have some companies that don't understand risk and they just have this crazy idea, you're like, no, that's not really possible. But for me, yeah, there is a worry, but I am pretty confident that we've put everything in place to make it safe before we do it. But we even did, like talking about Defenders, we did the reveal film when the Defender first came out. We shot it in Kazakhstan about 6 years ago. And it's a Defender off the side of a cliff. It's a friend of mine, Jim Dowdle, was stunt coordinator. I think it was Gary Hoptro was the stunt driver in the car. And it's literally a Defender climbing over a cliff with a 1,000-foot drop underneath it. And when we call action, someone's phone goes off. I'm like, whose fucking phone's that? It was actually my Apple Watch was going off saying, caution. No, it said, great workout. My watch was assuming I'm in the gym doing a great workout because my heartbeat was going so much. I'm not even in the car. I'm just watching it. So that was like, shit, I do worry about these things, but it's just the planning and it's the understanding and the knowledge we've got in doing this sort of stuff.
So do you have that conversation with the client that's just like, I've made it safe in terms of if something goes wrong, this is here to happen. We've calculated that the most likely scenario is that it's not going to go wrong, but he could still just roll down the cliff and that's not on me. Is that kind of the way that goes?
You've got to remember that if you see some cool advert on telly or a massive launch film for a car or something like that, that's not normal. If you want to be totally safe, and you're launching a new car, you just pull the sheet off and say, here it is. If you want to push things and be like, super cool in what you do and get the attention for doing things your way, then you've got to take more risks. But you've got to take those risks. You've got to plan everything and you've got to put the budget into that. And that's where the reason why my day rate is so much is almost like a way of testing people. If they say, we can't afford that, then I know they're not going to afford all the other stuff I want to put in place to make that stunt or that sequence safe. So it's all, see what I mean? It's like if I have a massive day rate, then I know that they've got the budget to do things properly.
So what's the coolest things you've seen with your own eyes then, stood there doing things, thinking, how the hell is this my job?
Oh man. Well, Tom Cruise on the side of the aeroplane on Mission Impossible, seeing him the first time thinking that's Maverick on the side of that plane taking off. The Red Bull thing was cool. We did, the Travis Pastrana Bentley film. It's Travis Pastrana and I'm in front of him and John, the director's like, Andy, I can't see him. Can you call action? I'm like, okay, Travis, 3, 2, 1, action. That's like, there's no point saying that I'm really cool. That means nothing to me. That is fucking cool. And I've got to go, fucking hell. That's like,
so bring it right back then, because that's peak moment there. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. What would have 10-year-old Andy thought of that? And who was 10-year-old Andy?
10-year-old Andy up to 30-year-old Andy was not very confident in himself. The school nerd, didn't have many mates in school, kept myself to myself. Even in the fire brigade, wasn't that good at doing it. I was all right. Didn't ever progress, just stayed as a firefighter. No confidence in myself and what I do. Just a normal person that just didn't really know what he wanted to do in life.
Did you have a fire inside you to there is something in me that feels like I'm destined to do something, but I'm not sure what it is or where it is yet? Or did you almost just fall into what happened?
No, I think I just plodded. And then I think I set up a few little companies on the way. I did an alarm engineer company. So I was putting burglar alarms in people's houses. I did a few other little businesses where I was, trying to do things.
And that was in your 20s?
Yeah. And then I think it was kind of working on motor racing and all that. I just thought there was a niche here. There was no one that understands cars and action and how things like that work, like the way I understand it. So I can market this and create something.
All the things you're describing from being younger, not confident, a bit of a nerd, plodding, the word you used, isn't boom, bang, action, Tom Cruise.
No.
Was that the stuff you enjoyed watching? Is that what you geeked out on, watching action films and crazy stunts and that kind of thing?
And cars. I love cars. And this American truck I've been building for 8 years now, there's so many reasons why that truck is the way it is because of stories from my younger years. So there's everything on that vehicle has a story behind it. So I've always liked cars. I don't know why. Why do we like cars? Why? What is so exciting about? I was chatting to a mate the other day. He's a TT rider who rides in the TT. We've been having this chat a lot recently about why does an engine that makes noise, when you're a little kid and you're in a little pedal car, it's cool. When you first go in a petrol engine go-kart, it's a petrol engine that's making the noises like your dad's car. Why do we get excited about petrol engines and movement and speed? And what's the science? Why do we love that so much? You know what I mean? Why do you love the cars that you've got as opposed to
I think because we all kind of love putting ourselves in risky situations that feel like we're in control, which is why a lot of the time I tend to find that supercar owners and people that like going fast absolutely hate, I don't know if you're the same as me, going on roller coasters. I'd never step foot on a roller coaster again for me because I don't physically have my hands on the controls or the brake pedal or something like that.
They don't excite me, roller coasters. Maybe it is that because we're not controlling it. For me, it's just like, woo, go around. Yeah.
Predictable.
Yeah. But then but here's the other thing. Because I've been so lucky to see cool stuff all the time, sometimes when I go as not working to see something that's all right, I'm like, it's all right. Because I know that in a few days' time, I'm going to have an F1 car going down a runway or a plane doing this or.
And talk us through the cars that you currently have in your collection that you've been able to buy since starting that business. And when was it that you did start the business? What age?
I think maybe 30, 31.
So 30, 31, you start your business.
Yeah.
Since then, what has kind of been in the garage? You started with the GTR, right?
So I bought a Nissan GTR. When we finished Fast and Furious 6, because they had Nissan GTRs in Fast 6. So I was like, I want a GTR. So I saved a load of money, worked really hard, did all the days on Fast 6, bought a GTR. And then I think another film project came along, so I had to sell the GTR to then personally put money back into the business. So after that, I then bought a GT3 RS, paid way over the price for it. Why did I buy a GT3 RS? I was filming in Finland. We had a Miami Blue GT3. Sorry, not an RS, sorry, GT3, sorry, Porsche GT3. And I was like, this is cool. So I ended up buying one by the end of the week. Never even been in one. Never even saw the one I was going to buy. But that's when they were like 20 grand overs. So paid over for that one. And then I was on a runway day at VMAX when they used to do runway days. And I was on the runway. I was with a friend of mine, a girl called Michelle Westby. She does like drifting and racing. And me and her were in the GT3. And then Richard, who used to own Auto Vivendi, Richard very sadly died last year. But Richard was like an amazing man. He would have been amazing on this podcast. He was the most charismatic man I've ever met in my life. But Richard came up to us and said, why don't you buy a 720S? If you like the GT3, you can go even faster. And I was like, and then Michelle was like, just buy one. And Richard's just the greatest salesman ever. And I was like, well, you've got one for sale. But Richard's one was so cool. So Richard wanted a Senna. So Auto Vivendi, the car club, they wanted a Senna, but they hadn't bought enough McLarens. So they said to Richard, you've got to buy at least. So Richard bought 3 720s, 2 totally standard and 1 with every option. And then what's quite funny was they then said to him, now buy a Senna. So he sold me the McLaren 720S with every option on it. He'd lost a fortune on it, but he got his Senna allocation. I managed to get a less than year-old 720S with a massive spec for like 70 grand less than Richard had paid for it. So we were both up on it. So I had this 720S that I've still got now that I absolutely love. I've had it 7 years, had nothing go wrong with it in 7 years. Well, say nothing. Had some bubbling on the paint, which they did under warranty, and it had suspension accumulators, which they did under the warranty. So 7 years of track days, runways, 200 mile an hour, totally fine. Well,
they like to be used, McLarens, don't they?
Yeah. I say
they
totally
don't do
fine.
well. They don't do well sitting around, do they?
No. But I hit a rabbit at 140 on a track day last week. So yeah, that's not been cheap to repair. So yeah, the 720. Still got the 720. Obviously, the Speciale, which I bought when it was half the price it is now, which is so cool. It's on finance. I pay £1,000 a month on finance. It goes up.
You pay £1,000 a month on finance. And how much was the car?
I paid just over 300. I think I put 80 down.
Okay.
I think I pay £1,000 a month, but what's that? That must go up £4,000, £3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get to own that. So there's that. I've got a 1987 Ford Fiesta XR2 with a tape player, which is so cool. It's retro, it's cool, it's kind of hasn't got ABS, it's quite terrifying. I've got my RS6, which is all right, but I'm probably going to sell it because it's not really me. I'm not really an RS6 kind of person.
I did. You know, it's funny that I didn't think you'd like that.
I know it's wonderful, but it's dirty, so I need to clean it. And it's like I use it all the time. It's too nice to look dirty on the outside, whereas the Octa can look dirty and get away with it.
It's a crazy statement. Is it too safe for you?
You can't hear the exhaust. That's the other thing. So it's not too safe. It's almost like not Larry enough for me.
Which is a crazy statement because do you want to just tell people what the number plate is that's gone semi-viral on your Speciale?
That picture of that plate has gone.
If you had a front plate on, I'd be able to see it.
I've got a front plate under the bonnet, actually. AD11DAF, which doesn't mean anything. However, ADHD-AF, which that one picture, that picture that's gone viral, which I wasn't even driving it when that picture was taken. But what's weird is that picture is the one that goes viral every time. Not a nice picture of it. That picture of it at traffic lights in Stratford upon Avon or somewhere. And it's like 12, 14 million, 20 million views now. It gets shared. I mean, you see, it comes up all the time, doesn't it?
Do you ever think, like, what do brands think? Or not, when I say brands,
I know what you're going to ask now.
What do clients think if I'm driving around in a 458 Speciale with a plate that says ADHD AF on it?
Yeah.
And I'm there to do their safety?
So my clients in motorsport and content and YouTube and branded content, they know about it. They think it's cool. They think it's funny. They understand. My clients in the movies, I try for them not to be aware of it because the movies is a very different industry to the informality of working in motorsport.
Why?
Because movies is all about money, about how you can make a film and get the biggest profit margins back. And obviously when the safety advisor who's at the bottom of the tree turns up with that number plate, that's never going to go down well. So I try and keep that away from the movie side of things. I probably wouldn't even turn up in the Land Rover. I'll probably turn up in the van.
Yeah, because you've got that now. Now that is a very special Defender at the end there, isn't it? What is it?
That is the new Defender Octa. They are phenomenal. That is a BMW M5 powered Defender, 635 horsepower. It drives like it is. If I had to have one car for the rest of my life, it's that. That is pretty special. Yeah.
What made you buy one of those?
Originally, it was the finance deals they were offering. They're doing them on 2% finance. So it was the finance deal is what made me buy it. And the fact that I get the VAT back and the fact that we use it in the business all the time. It's used to trailer things. It's used to drop stuff off.
So is that basically like an SVR, what was Range Rover Sport?
Oh, it's more than that.
Is it?
The suspension it's got this 6D suspension that that is the flagship of Land Rover now. And the fact it's got a BMW engine makes it even better. And the noise it makes, the way it accelerates, it shouldn't do what it does. But it suits me. You know, the way that I am, the way I dress, what I need to do for a job. If I've got to tow something out of a field and chuck a load of junk in the back of an Audi RS6, it's too nice. That I can use it off-road. I can drive people around. I can chuck stuff in the boot. I can tow, a trailer with a load of extinguishers in the back of it. That I can use a lot better for work than an RS6, which is it's too nice, an RS6. Too nice for what I need.
At what point does even your love of cars get challenged by the fact that you could probably sell that and make nearly 300 grand at the minute?
I know. It's difficult, isn't it?
Because is it fair to say that the assumption of someone that has a 720S and a 458 Speciale and a Defender Octa and a business with a unit and staff and all the rest of it is that you must have millions and millions of pounds to squirrel away in the bank? And that's not right.
I've got about 1,400 quid in the bank, in my personal bank, at the moment. It's like you have to do things, and it's like a business. You're constantly doing a director's loan back to the business. Yes, one day I will sell MSS as a separate thing. I'll still carry on doing my own individual consulting work that I do. But then going back to the question, yes, that's a lot of money tied up in that. Do you quit whilst you're ahead? But then if you had an F40, which I know that you love it, or a LaFerrari, and you bought it at 1 2 million and it's now worth 4 million. When do you sell
Let's
it?
get into your mind then. Because I met this guy. Maybe I should do a podcast with him. I met this guy when I was in my teenage years through my dad's business that supplied stone to builders merchants, and he had a builders merchant in Surrey, 1 yard. I think it was called Silverland Stone, Greg Skillbeck, and he'd worked like you relentlessly his whole life building this business.
Yep.
And he sold it for a pretty penny. He sold it for, I think it was £8 million. It's like something like that. Well done, cashed in, unbelievable. I think that was my memory. But he owned a McLaren F1 when it was brand new, and he'd done
An F1?
everything an F1.
Wow, okay.
And he bought it for 300 grand, and he sold it for 600 grand. So very similar circumstance.
That's now 20
And he
million.
thought, oh my God, I've doubled my money on a car. This is the most insane thing ever. And he could have sold that car for 3 times more.
Yeah.
He still had it than the business he worked his entire life building. So
Yeah.
get inside the head of a Speciale owner for a second. Is
Yeah.
that what's going through your head daily with a car like that?
I didn't buy it to make money. I bought it because I wanted one and because I knew it wouldn't lose money. There does get to a stage where you think my life could be made a lot easier. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it does make your life easy. And I've been skint and I've been wealthy. There's that saying in there. I've been skint, I've been wealthy. I know where I'm most happiest, So it can give you an ability through selling things that you own to make your life easier. The way the world is going, especially in the UK at the moment, there's a lot of changes coming, especially in business in the UK, as we all know. When do you decide to cash out? But then if I cash out, what do? Do you put it into your house? Well, house prices don't go up like they used to. You put it into gold. What else do you put it into? Where do you move?
You come back to look for another car to go to invest in, but you've already got one that's going up.
Exactly. So it's like, when can you make sure that you are comfortable, and do I need to sell it? There's probably a whole hour podcast, isn't there, on do you sell a Speciale now or not? As soon as Shmi bought one, I was like, okay, they're going to go nuts now. And sure enough, I think he's probably a catalyst towards the reason why they've also started going up so much, because he announced his, 3 months ago, and it's only been the last 3 months that they've started going really bonkers, isn't it?
But we're sat here and you said that it was amazing to reflect. I think I told you one of the titles I was planning for the episode about how a regular guy that started a safety business now has over £1 million of cars. And I think it's really nice when I'm able to get people on at different ends of the spectrum and journeys of success. But where I mean is where they've started, where it's happened, where like the catalyst thing of starting their business or doing the thing that be able to mount the things they have. And it's really nice when I get people that have got stories of doing that after 30. Because I think there's so many people in their 20s out there that feel, I do every day, but feel like they're not doing enough, or they're not ahead enough quickly, or they've turned 27 like I just have, or 28 or whatever.
Yeah.
And they see, a YouTuber or a TikToker that's 19 with everything that they want to amass or have. And it's just nice to kind of sit down with someone that has a regular business in that sense, more of a business that plods on, as you said, and carries on and offers a service. It's traditional, yet it's still actually been really successful with something like that after the age of 30. Did you kind of think that when you're in your late 20s that there was still an opportunity to do something? Did you think it was kind of over then? Are you surprised by your own journey, is what I'm saying?
Yeah, I am surprised by it, mainly because I didn't plan to do it. It just grew and grew and evolved. But then there is a tiny bit of me, although, I've not designed my business side of life to be about growth. As I say, I've never done a business plan. There's the reason why, because, I haven't ever planned to grow it all. But then I do think, I think my business has been running the same amount of time as SpaceX. Someone called Mr. Elon Musk has accomplished quite a bit more than I have. So am I lacking the fact that in the same time someone's dominated the world, whereas all I've done is been able to afford a Speciale? But then I'm happy with that. I'm confident in what I've created. I don't have any other goals in business other than to just keep going, keep my team happy, and keep doing cool shit across the world.
How quickly did you become a different person in terms of confidence after you started a business?
Oof. I think initially, the first 6 years of running a business was the opposite, because you get a lot of shit off of people. You get opposition trying to rubbish you, you get people screwing you over, you get things going wrong, then that in me created a resilience of, okay, the business cannot fail because I'm going to prove to the people which have doubted me or that have tried to screw me over what I can do. So that side of it is quite good to give you that inner, not confidence, but inner resilience in yourself and in what you can accomplish. And the same as, what's it called? What's that thing called when people are afraid of, what's it called when people say that they're imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome, right? I used to have imposter syndrome, as many people do in business. Now, not 1% of me has imposter syndrome. I know that what I do, I know that I am the best in the world at it. No one else can do it. With the clients that I've got and the projects I'm doing, that has given me the confidence to go, yeah, this is what I do. There is no imposter syndrome now. Anything else I can't do, but doing the exact things I do, I am very good at it and I'm confident in myself at it. But dealing with a problem in a business, or dealing with this or dealing with that, I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So I get people to do what I'm not good at and I do what I am good at.
What's the person that you've worked with on a set who you've had to be the thickest of skinned to work with?
Yeah.
And where was that skin built? Was it through Clarkson, Hammond May days?
I mean, that sort of stuff was, because we knew who the presenters were and what they do, you kind of are expecting it. You do have to be thick-skinned, but I'm quite lucky because if we're on a film, for example, I normally work on what's called second unit. So second unit often doesn't have actors. It's often, there'll be a stunt coordinator, there'll be stunt performers, there'll be special effects teams, but you'll have doubles doing everything. So you don't often work with the political problems of big actors where you need to be thick-skinned. But that said, a lot of people are normal people behind it all. You know, these massive megastars and stuff are actually all, pretty cool behind the scenes. There are people which you do know you have to be careful around. So with them, I'll just, do the very bare minimum, say the minimum, stay out the way sort of thing. Just to try. I think having ADHD is interesting because you spend a lot of your life worried about upsetting people, and you often do upset people, especially kids with ADHD when they're younger, get in lots of trouble. They upset people. They have, reputation. So that does teach you quite a lot on how not to upset people. And I know that when I take my sensible tablets, as I call them, take my ADHD tablets, that kind of gives me a new way of looking at things and calming me down and focus, I suppose, to not to do the wrong things or say the wrong things. It kind of enables me to be careful around the people I need to be careful around.
When did you go on the medication, the ADHD tablets?
I didn't even know I had ADHD until about 8 years ago. And I was listening to a radio phone in, it was Ian Dale on LBC. And that was when he was talking about ADHD undiagnosed in adults. And I knew that there was something not right with my brain, but I didn't know what.
In a frustrating way?
I thought I was unwell. I thought I had Alzheimer's or something like that. I thought
because you couldn't focus.
So I couldn't focus. I would lose things. I thought there was something. I thought, is there a brain cancer? What is wrong with my brain? And I knew for about 3 I went to the doctor twice as well, saying there's something not right with my brain. And it wasn't diagnosed. But that one radio phone in, instantly I pulled over and I was like, that's it. And then I Googled it and I'm like, this is 100% me. And then obviously you go through all the ADHD assessments and you learn so much more about it. But then when people say, oh, there's no such thing as ADHD, okay, take these 3 tablets and come back to me.
It's really fascinating that, because what you're describing, I know I must have, I think a lot of people, maybe even driven by social media and our constant scrolling stuff and what it does to rewire our brains. But I think there's a lot of young adults that probably have symptoms where either low or high. And what you're describing there, like, I lose my wallet for a week at a time on a bi-weekly basis, quite literally. I'm like, it's fine, it'll turn up. And like other people, I don't know how you're fine with that. And I'm like, well, my brain's on something else. Or like, I've got to pay that parking ticket. I need to do that. And I just don't. And then it's like 270 quid a week later. I'm like, why have I not done that?
You could be forgetful, but then these...
Explain that. So it's really fascinating to have someone on that says they've got ADHD that's actually got the medication and then what the results of that is.
This is the way to see if you have ADHD or not. Now, obviously, this is a controlled drug, so obviously I can't let you have to go through a doctor and stuff. But this is methylphenidate hydrochloride. This is meth. Okay. This is, if a normal person, say someone says I've got ADHD, but they're normal and they have these tablets, they would be very efficient. They would be like buzzing off their head, okay? If a person with ADHD takes these, I take 3 of these, they're 10 milligrams, so I take 30 milligrams, I take it 3 times a day. When I take these, about 15 minutes after, all the prefrontal cortex, your brain, the cerebellum and cerebrum just becomes aligned, and it just works better. It just slows things down, enables me to think, to process, enables me to be a bit more normal. But it does take away a bit of the edge, a bit of the creativity. Yeah, it does it. And with me, what's very interesting, I've not spoken about this before, but with me, my tablets, I've only realized over recent years, actually bring in autistic traits. And it's a common thing where people with ADHD and autism, the ADHD hides the autism. Whereas if you take these tablets, it gets rid of the ADHD. So guess what comes out of nowhere? Autism. So a lot of what I do and how I think, I haven't been assessed for it because I don't want to be assessed for it, because it means then that there's lots of negatives to it, especially medically. You can't get a private pilot's license with autism, for example. So there is that side to it. But it's very strange how I can use the tablets to get me to think differently. If I need to really focus, I'll take 3. If I need to do this, but also be able to do 10 things at once, I'll take 1. I can actually change my brain with the amount of tablets I take. And if I don't take them for 3 or 4 days, I'm an absolute mess. I've lost everything. I don't know where I am. I'm flustered. I've forgotten this. I am useless without them. And it makes me realize how rubbish I must have been in my 20s and 30s, and even when, as a kid, because I didn't have them. I need these now to help my brain work. If you're listening and you enjoy this, please subscribe to Ben's podcast. I personally listen to it all the time. I've listened to every single episode, and I'm always messaging him saying, this one's great. It is, I promise, it's genuinely my favourite podcast to listen to.
So if you're like that, who's been the most important hire in your main business, MSS, for actually running the show on a day-to-day basis if you kind of get that way?
Yeah. So within my team, there's 2 people that are, we're quite a small team. Considering the size of the business, it's quite a small team, but everyone is like super cool at what they do. And if someone joins the team that can't cut the mustard, it stands out pretty quickly. But I've got my head of safety, who is kind of like across the things, all the team, and with the guys. I've got Kelly, who's our project manager. She is the person who, if I literally phone up and like, Kelly, I need this doing quick, book me a flight here. Kelly used to work at Terminal 5 Heathrow. She's used to dealing with chaos. So she thrives on that excitement of, someone needs to get from this country to that country.
2 things you wouldn't put together.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many polar opposites that come onto this podcast. And like the safety, ambulances, saving lives, making sure that if someone has a really big crash, they've got a chance of surviving it. I mean, I had Billy Monger on only a few weeks ago, lost his legs in that horrific F3
Well,
crash.
that ambulance out the front is the ambulance that took Billy Monger to the med centre.
Really?
That is the exact ambulance that was there that day, by a strange little curveball. Yeah.
And then that's the times that it's actually needed. So like what was a time that you was on site where something really bad has happened? Like take us into like a really bad, really tough day.
So there was my time in the fire brigade when there was tough days, really tough.
Almost tougher than what you do now?
Oh, tough, emotionally tough as regards people dying. Like, yeah, really not good days. There was a train crash, and that was pretty bad.
Is that what gives you so much for respect for the lads that go out and do what they do? Because how I described earlier, because it's just I've been stood on the side of the Top Gear track, and the lads are just lads leaning on the ambulance stuff. But is it crazy what they go through that the general public just
all my team that you would see have all dealt with very bad days at work. They've all been frontline emergency services. They've all dealt with things going really, really wrong. And I think we had a job we were doing the fire safety, medical ambulance cover and safety for Clarkson circuit one year. And it was a round of British superbikes. There was a crash on the track, a motorbike crash. And one of the riders died. But we saw him go to the med centre, and we knew it was big. We didn't know how big. And I can't remember what it is. There's a call sign we use, which means the priest or the vicar has turned up. And I remember hearing on the headset on the radio that basically you don't ever use the exact words in event safety. You have code words for everything. It was like, Mr. Green has just turned up at the med centre. I can't remember what the exact words were. And I knew that was the vicar who's turned up at the med centre. So I'm like, shit, he's there for one reason. Then days like that are tough. And days like that bring back my, those 10 years I did in emergency services which all emergency services deal with. I did 6 years as a volunteer responder for the ambulance service as well, where I live. Probably done 30 cardiac arrests. I've never got anyone back. So I've resuscitated 30 people on my own until the ambulance service get there, which haven't made it. So there is a tough side. And I do worry that one day it's going to hit me like a steam train, the shit, which I had to.
Does it go through your mind when you're signing off? Yes, let's do it. Let's rip the cover off the car using the plane, the Red Bull, etc. And do you ever see films that you think that might have gone too far, that like you weren't on it or something like that, or companies pushing the boundary just a little bit too far? Does that happen, or is that just that person in the car and the company is fine with them taking the risk? There's all the right paperwork in place, and that's what they're paid the big bucks for. So
that side of it that's where I often do get frustrations, because I'm giving an opinion based on seeing things happen and go wrong. So that's how I know, where things go wrong. And within my team, Carolyn, she's our business development manager. She's the person that's dealing with clients all the time. And she kind of understands my frustrations when a client doesn't understand the reality of the danger of what we're doing. So she often deals with clients for me, because she knows that I'll just get frustrated and be like, no. So she's like very good at kind of, we almost say that she's almost like my carer sometimes. She's sort of like vetting the jobs and dealing with the problems if people don't understand the reality of what we're gonna do here. If you're doing a base jumping stunt, we did a load of base jumping stuff years ago. There is statistics. There is a website out there that has the fatality rates in base jumping and what percentages of what type of jump people will die. So that is a factually proven bit of data about if you do a base jump. Do you know what base stands for?
Explain it for everybody.
So base, bridge, antenna, span, or earth. That's what base means. Jumping from a bridge, jumping from an antenna, a mast, a span, i.e. building. Building, antenna, span, bridge, earth. So jumping off a building, jumping off an antenna, jumping off a bridge, or jumping off earth, i.e. off of a cliff. And if you go down all those different things, there is, and you know which one the most dangerous one is?
Earth?
I think it's building, because if you jump off a building, you've only got 50% of space in front of you. There's 50% of the space behind you that is the building. Whereas if you jump off of a span, a bridge, there is nothing.
You're right.
Once you've jumped off, you've got nothing behind you. You've got 360 degrees around you. So there is data out there with how dangerous base jumping is. So you can then go to a client that says, we want to do a base jumping stunt, and you can actually go, right, as long as you're aware, people die doing it. This is the data behind it.
Why do people do it? Do you ever think that when you're working with these people, the stunt guys?
But this goes back to me saying to you about engines and cars and wanting to go fast and stuff. I've done 6 parachute jumps just out of a plane, not a base jump. Can you imagine? And that's like out of a plane with the Royal Air Force and safety and all that. Can you imagine climbing up the side of a bridge, off the side of a bridge with your mates? You're not supposed to be there, and you've got traffic going past, and just you jump off. You imagine the rush from that. You imagine it's naughty. It's not just the adrenaline, it's the illegalness. I can see why people do base jumps.
Do you know Alex Honnold? That name?
No.
He's the climber that just did the building in Taiwan on Netflix.
Yeah.
He's the guy that climbs up the side of all the cliffs with no ropes, no strings attached, all that kind of thing. And he's absolutely adamant that what he does and how he lives his life is less risky than how 99% of people live their lives. He doesn't like spending too much time in cars, and cars are where it all goes wrong, apparently. And he doesn't like doing this, doesn't like doing that. He's like, you put yourselves at far much more risk than me climbing with no ropes, because I know what I'm doing going up the building. Do you think that that's denial of just trying to keep the scary bit at bay?
Yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah, he's
nuts.
He doesn't need to climb up that building. He can make the choice to get in a car. Yes, you're probably more at risk driving to work than you are crashing in a plane going somewhere on holiday, if you drive to the airport, statistically. But statistically, if he falls off at that, that's it. He doesn't need to climb that. That is a very risky thing. But then you could say, but how many times have people fallen off doing stuff like that? That's where you got to look at, at risk, severity versus likelihood.
You work with all the big brands and the TV companies and the Red Bulls and Monsters that kind of do all this stuff. His recent one, was live on Netflix going up that building. What do you think of that?
So I work with Netflix. I do. Okay. Yeah, I've done quite a lot for Netflix in the past, as have our team. I was surprised to see it was being broadcast live. Very surprised. I mean, there would have been a delay. I don't think it would have been totally live. I think there would have been a 10-second delay on it at least. But the interesting thing for that is, are Netflix just filming it circumstantially? They are filming something he was going to do anyway.
Okay, that's a great point.
Or is it scripted that he is going to do that? So when we've done similar stuff in the past with wingsuit flyers chasing down side of cliffs and stuff, if it's scripted and you're asking someone to do it, who is then responsible? There's, a lot. And also when I saw that as well, I thought people that are watching that live are not watching it because they're interested in climbing. They're watching that for one reason, because this human nature that we have. Why do people slow down when they go past an accident on the motorway and they look across the other carriageway? It's a human nature, isn't it? That people are interested in what happens in us when things go wrong. And I think it'd be very interesting to understand the average person that watched that show and why they were genuinely watching it. Because they're not watching it because it's climbing. That is something intense to watch in it. That is something to, on Netflix side, I'm impressed. That's good. The fact that Netflix took the risk and put all the safety measures in place as best they could to do that, and the fact that they pushed to do that as well, is exciting. I think it's good.
Have you got to be there as well? Not just obviously for the person doing the thing, but is there sometimes people behind the scenes that are putting themselves at more risk than the people actually doing the thing? I'm thinking like camera crews and stuff like that.
Yeah, you look at the average Bear Grylls type TV show and he's hanging off the side of the cliff eating a dead moose or something. There's someone next to him filming that, with a massive camera. How's the camera operator got there? So yeah, there is these unsung heroes of documentary filmmaking that are also doing this sort of crazy stuff, going to these crazy places, you look at these like journalists that go to war zones and stuff. Did you see that thing recently? That journalist is doing that talking in Iran a couple of weeks ago, and the rocket comes down and hits behind him. It's literally, he starts running and a rocket lands behind him. It is bonkers to watch. So these journalists that go to war zones and stuff, I've been to war zones, I had a rifle. They go to war zones, they got a microphone. I know what I'd rather have.
That is crazy when you think about it like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
The risk people put themselves in, and I think we've got this degree of when someone's got press written on them that, they're going to be immune, they're going to be fine. But that's not really the case then. No.
It's like,
who's the nuttiest of all the companies you work with? Who does the biggest stunts, the biggest things?
No one's like nutty because everything is assessed. No one that I work with is stupid and takes a dangerous risk. But then the companies that want to really push the boundaries of what is super cool to watch and what is, amazing and great content, what draws people in stuff. You've got to look at the drinks companies at Monster Energy, Red Bull, stuff that they're sponsoring, the stuff they want to do, because it's extreme sport athletes. It's doing there's that thing Red Bull last week did, a Red Bull F1 car on a railway track. Have you seen that? And I don't know, something in Spain they did like a couple of days ago. They put train wheels on an F1 car and people just commented Red Bull doing Red Bull things. It's not dangerous, but it's cool. It's the brands that want to do cool stuff, isn't it?
Where do they go though once they broke all the records? Do you ever get involved in those active chats? Because do they just keep thinking they can push the boundary a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further? Like, are you like, there's a point where you just can't get past the boundary? I saw the one where the guy skied down the cliff and did like 200 and something meters in the air before touching down. I'm just like, so what, has he got to do it again and go 10 meters further? Like, what do you get involved in any of those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I once a week, I'm having a phone call with someone about a record attempt, or how can we break this, or how can we do that? We've got one we're planning at the moment, actually. It's not a speed attempt, it's actually a distance attempt. It's quite a complex one, but it's quite cool if it's going to happen. But people always want to do that. But we are going to run out of all this stuff one day. Well, stuff which can only be done once. So then it's like, what do you do? What do you do next? You know, what idea can you come up with next to do something that's cool, that's modern, that ties in with what's going on at the moment? There's so much. Where do you go next?
What about you? Where do you go next?
Well, I'm kind of moving away from the safety advisor stuff now, and I'm now coordinating, coming up with the ideas and producing stuff, which is what I like doing. Coming up with stuff, thinking, I'll just be driving on and I'll be like, hold on, that makes me think of that. That can do that. We've got some super cool stunt projects coming up.
So did you just phone up a mate at Red Bulls like, I've had an idea, I think we can make it happen, I think we can do it safely, and I'll help you do it, and this is what we could do?
Well, not necessarily just Red Bull. It could be, if the idea ties into a brand, then we can do that. So you've got to look at, and for me, it's always automotive brands. So I've got to think, okay, what company is, renowned? If it's an idea around aerodynamics and downforce and stuff, you think McMurtry, they are all about downforce and suction. So I've got this idea around that. So I know the team at McMurtry. So it's
Let me guess, driving a car upside down in a tunnel.
That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? So yeah, there's all sorts of ideas what people want to do. But you've got to think, what brand does what?
Give us a scenario of an idea that you've been given that is just too far to do. One of your no moments.
So,
I'm sorry, I'd love to do it, but it can't be done.
I didn't say no. We did actually plan it, but in the end, we just decided this is too silly. It was kind of the company. It was one of the big tech companies that make circuit boards that have heat treats and stuff like that. And it was like one of the massive global
NVIDIA
brands.
or something
like that. Yeah. And they said our circuit board and our chips can withstand this heat. And we came up with an idea of, there was a volcano erupting at the time in Hawaii somewhere. And we worked out how we could put a wire from the top of this volcano down and across the lava. And then we were going to make a surfboard out of these chips underneath the surfboard, have a stunt double on a harness, and they were then going to come down. So they're like on a wire floating over the top of the lava, and they were going to surf the lava and then come off the lava and then go into the sea and release. And then they'd land on the sea in the surfboard. They were going to surf lava. This was an idea. We planned this. We actually went through it. We were like, can this happen? And we were joking. I mean, when I first got the phone call about, can this happen? I started speaking to a few people that I work with, people that do like wire rigs and special effects. And we were like, we were always like laughing. And it's always become this joke now that the stunt that never happened, but there is a way to do that, isn't there? There is a way. You can come down on a wire and the surfboard, and we were going to have Velcro on the shoes with the surfboard attached to your feet via Velcro. So as soon as you hit the lava and you go off, you can move your feet at a certain angle, which then disconnects the Velcro to leave the surfboard if it was too much. And then the wire system could pull you up. I mean, there was a lot of people on it, a lot of stunt coordinators, special effects teams, wire. We were kind of going through it for a while. But can you imagine that? That would have been the biggest thing on the internet, the guy that surfed lava. That'd be cool.
So who was the person that gave the final no on this?
It's sort of, I think during that one, I think it's because COVID came along and all the ideas and cool stuff sort of stopped happening. But yeah, none of us actually said no. None of us said yes, but we said we could look at this. We could maybe do a test rig with a dummy to come down and see what happens. There was discussions over, can this happen?
So when someone sees something like that, that's mental. I remember the one that made my jaw drop almost like listening to that was the skier that went down the side of Everest. You see the guy that's skied from the top to the bottom, and like he's like just dipping off because he's on at points he's on like a knife edge.
Yeah.
Is there like a consensus where like a load of people that are going to make that happen sit in the room and it's almost like a vote, like everyone has to go around and go, yep. Is that how it is? That's how it to be.
So for something like that, there would be a brand deal behind it as well. So which company is going to sponsor that and put the money towards it as well? Is someone from high up in that company then going to go, whoa, hold on, this is Everest. 1 in 12 people die on the top. We're not going to risk this. So there's going to be a lot of people in that process, but then ultimately the person doing the skiing has got to make that call.
That's a brilliant question to ask you. You ready?
Yeah.
Who's safer? 1 in 12 people in the group that goes up Everest, or the guy that's had everything planned that's about to surf lava?
Statistically, we know 1 in 12 people die doing Everest. That's why Sir Ranulph Fiennes in his 70s did it a 13th time, Because he was like, well, I haven't died yet. I'm going to prove death wrong. I'm going to do it a 13th time in my 70s. That's why Savannah finds he's one of the coolest men on earth. But there is data to prove that, whereas the surf and lava, there isn't. We haven't done it before. It's unique. We know what the risks are with Everest because it's been done so many times. We know the safest way. We have all the experience over the years, that statistical analysis of what makes it dangerous. Whereas the lava thing isn't. But through Everest being done a lot of times, not complacency, but it kind of is done. Okay, we do this, we go. It's just, you think if you're a Sherpa working at Everest, it must be mundane towards the end, just doing it all the time. They're doing it like 8 times a year or something, I think. They're just doing it loads. Whereas is someone doing it, the surf and the lava, is that, there'd be more focus on safety because it's the first time it's been done. I really don't know.
It's such a fascinating world, this, to learn about, because I think the average person would be able to point at the jobs we see in our day-to-day life and give a pretty close estimate to what that job pays. Like whether it's a top earning lawyer or NHS or Costa as a services, we have a pretty good take a good stab at it in the dark. You've given us an insight into your world and how you've done the supercars and stuff. The guy that's going to surf the lava, how the hell does he price that? Will he just come in and go, 2 million? Like, there's no rate card. It's just like he'll throw a number, and if the brand wants to do it, they do it.
Yeah. So sometimes if people come up with the idea, you might get some YouTubers who will do silly stuff for free. But then if it's done as a stunt, the stunt coordinator will then work out what's called an adjustment for the stunt performer that's doing it. And there are some amazing stunt performers out there with such individual amazing skills that have a very high adjustment rate. Every time they do the stunt, they get paid again to do it because it's like they're putting themselves at risk. But that's where you got to think, you've got stunt performers that work on the movie projects and TV, but then you've got your daredevils that do stuff for YouTube. You've got these people that go and climb up the side of, do pull-ups off the side of skyscrapers. They're not getting paid for that. They're doing just for YouTube hits. Whereas the professionals are doing it as part of a scripted sequence. So I think how they would put a price on it, it's the same with a car rollover. People that are rolling cars for living stunt performers, they have a set price if it's just normal car rollover. But
is there a rate for that?
Yeah, I don't know what they charge. I think a stunt performer, don't forget to be on the stunt register. These guys and girls have got to do a lot of training. It's not easy to get on the stunt register. It is so much
So if I wanted to roll a car on camera, you've got to get a license as if you were going racing.
Not so much a license, but you'll be 9 times out of 10, you'll be in the British Stunt Register. You'd have gone through their systems and their processes. You'll be an expert in this, in that. You'll have a certain amount of disciplines, whether it's a martial art, diving, cars, horse riding. There's all these different disciplines, which I think you have to have 6 different disciplines. And then you've spent time on set. You've listened to what the stunt coordinators told you. You've done exactly what you need to do. And then there's a day rate for them. And then there's their adjustment fee for every time they're doing stuff. They could even be, I don't so much work on the stunt side of stuff for scripted for movies and stuff. But if someone's being punched in a scene, they might get, I don't know, £1,000, £500, whatever, for being punched in a movie. There's all different rates because they are putting themselves at risk. They have a talent, they have a skill, they've trained to do something. They're like an actor or an actress, aren't they? But they are specialist in what they're doing, and they deserve the money that they're getting, and they're paid well because they are pretty good at what they do.
So the man that surfs the lava would be getting paid a lot of money.
I reckon if they did their brand deal right and who would be doing it, it could be 50 grand, it could be 100 grand, it could be more.
That low to surf on lava?
It could be, but then it could be even more. There's people which have done car stunts, very risky car stunts before that have been paid a lot, but I don't get involved in that side of stuff. But then it's kind of, you're bringing that person in, who holds the rights to that? Does that person get known a lot more? There's all sorts of complexities that goes on with how it's all funded, how people are paid. And I stay out of that. I just deal with how I can make these things safely, how people are paid for it. I leave that down to that's the boring stuff.
Well, I think you've done very well to put some of the boring stuff aside and focus on doing what you love doing. And I think that is the whole point of Road to Success. So, Andy, thank you so much for coming on again and giving us more of an insight into the world behind just the Top Gear days and working with Clarkson, May and Hammond, which is super cool, but there's so much more to you. So thank you once again for speaking to me in the audience. And I'm sure we will be catching up once you've surfed lava in the near future.
That's cool. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.